Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. In today's video we are going to be discussing withdrawal requests. If you're new to the channel, please make sure to watch the video in its entirety so that you don't miss something that might pertain to you and your situation, and you'll avoid some frustration. So here we are back at SSA.gov. Specifically, we're looking at policy GN 00206.005, requirements for withdrawal of a benefit application. So essentially, the criteria to withdraw an application is it must be done within 12 months of your first month of entitlement. Okay. The second is that you must repay everything that Social Security paid you. They don't accept any sort of partial payments or anything like that, so it's pretty much all or nothing. And the third thing to kind of highlight here is it can only be done once, right? Once in your lifetime, it can only be done. So if you're considering this option, make sure that you weigh it heavily. There are situations where maybe suspension is more worth your while rather than a withdrawal. An example of this would be like, let's say that maybe you thought that you were going to leave work and they offered you, a raise or something like that, and you decided to take that money rather than, either reducing or stopping your work, and now you're going to essentially make more money throughout the year. I would recommend that if you're able to work, you're going to get more money from work more than likely than you will from Social Security. So just make sure you weigh out your options, because you could be in a position where, okay, maybe you're suspended for 3 months out of the year, but then the other 9 months you get paid. If it's a situation where, based off of what you're making now, you're going to be suspended for like 10 months out of the year, then it doesn't really make sense to keep drawing Social Security benefits, in my opinion. Now, an important thing to note, if that second example is you, that for any months that you're suspended because you received a reduced retirement or survivor's benefit, or a reduced retirement benefit, for any months that you were suspended, once you reach your full retirement age, you get adjusted reduction factors. So if, let's say that you filed for benefits at 62 and your full retirement age is 66, that's 48 reduction factors, or 4 years that you took your benefits early. So then let's say that out of those 48 months, 20 of those months you were suspended because of your work. Once you reach your full retirement age, your benefit is going to adjust and basically credit you back those 20 months that you were suspended, and your monthly payment's going to go up. I did a video, I believe last week, about how your benefits can go up after you take them. So that's essentially one of the ways. So just keep that in mind. Make sure you evaluate, what all your options are, and then go from there. Scrolling down to Section B of this policy, it's talking about in the event that, let's say, the main beneficiary that signed up for benefits passes away. As a widow or a widower or a surviving spouse, if you're still within those 12 months of the first month of entitlement, you can still withdraw. So if, let's say that maybe your deceased spouse, they filed for benefits last month, and the application was completed, and maybe no payments have been paid yet, or maybe very little benefits have gone out, and you're evaluating if you should withdraw or not. One of the things that you want to think about is something called RIBLIM, and that stands for retirement limitation. So let's say that the deceased started benefits before their full retirement age. This now puts a restriction on their record as far as what you can receive as a surviving spouse. And here's the policy. It's RS 00615.320. And basically, as a surviving spouse of somebody who took benefits before their full retirement age, a restriction is placed on the record. The most that you can receive under that record is 82.5% of the insurance amount, or what the person was receiving at the time that they passed away. You're eligible for the larger of the two, right? So they're looking for your best interest there in that particular case. So if it's somebody who, let's say that they filed at 62, right? Now they have a maximum reduction. this is really going to weigh a factor in what you're going to be eligible for as a surviving spouse, and you may want to consider withdrawing. And hopefully nothing was paid or very little, so it's not a financial burden to pay it back, because that may benefit you later in life to have an unreduced record. So that's really something to think about there. So consider those options, before you do anything. But just know that even as a surviving spouse, you can still you could still fill out the paperwork to have the withdrawal done. And depending on the situation and the amounts, you might want to do that. Or if let's say that they filed and they were, let's say that the deceased filed and they're much closer to their full retirement age. Let's say they reach full retirement age in like June of 23 and their benefits were effective with January of 23 as an example. It's a very minor reduction. So realistically, you're going to be eligible for what the person was getting at the time that they passed away, because that's going to be higher more than likely than the 82.5% of the insurance amount. So something to consider there. Now, going a little deeper into it, this is the form that gets completed whenever a request for withdrawal needs to be put in motion. This is form SSA-521. This is a public form that you can find on Google. Pretty straightforward here. Name of wage earner. That's either going to be you or possibly the deceased person, depending on your situation. The applicable Social Security number. If the person is deceased, then you would put your name, your Social Security number. You're going to articulate the type of benefit that you are withdrawing. Social Security should be able to tell you the date of the application. I don't know why Medicare's on here, because that's a separate form. That would be, if you were withdrawing Medicare, it would be form CMS 1764, I believe. And I did a previous video on that. There's only a couple of reasons why somebody would withdraw Medicare benefits. Medicare Part A, I would say it's almost never that somebody withdraws Medicare Part A, especially if it's free. But if they did, it's probably because there's a health savings account or an HSA involved. This is essentially tax-deferred money that gets set aside for any sort of medical catastrophe and expenses, things like that. And Medicare Part B, if you're withdrawing that, it's probably because maybe you didn't realize that you needed to decline the coverage, and you have insurance through either you or your spouse's active group health plan through work. Scrolling down here, the most common reason why somebody would withdraw benefits, we briefly discussed it. It's usually work. So if you're in a position where your checks are going to be suspended for like 10 months out of the year, it doesn't necessarily make sense. I mean, in some cases, maybe the person still wants those 2 payments, but in most cases, they would rather have the higher monthly amount at the later date versus a reduced benefit. And then, I mean, really, there's no right or wrong answer. You don't need a valid reason. You could withdraw. You could just say, I made a mistake and I want to withdraw. It's fine. And then just make sure that you fill out your sign it, date it, put your telephone number, your address, your zip code, and your county if applicable. And then what's going to happen once you turn in this form, which you'll turn this form into the local Social Security office. I would highly recommend turning it in person. And in this space up here in the top right-hand corner, I would ask them to date stamp it and then give you a copy of it with the date stamp on there so you can keep it for your record. And then what will happen, and then also make sure that you request that your benefits are, if they're actively in an active pay status, make sure that they suspend the benefits right there in front of you if they can. It's like a 2-second thing where they go into a particular system called pause, and they do a suspension code, which is S9. And that S9 is specific to suspending benefits because there's going to be a withdrawal request being processed. I have seen in the past where representatives will put in a miscellaneous suspense code, that's incorrect. They'll put in like they'll suspend your record and they'll use a code that indicates that your address is incorrect or your bank information is incorrect, something like that. Don't let them do that. Specifically tell them, I heard that you need to put an S9 suspension code on my record to suspend it for withdrawal. Please do that as soon as possible because I do not want to continue to get paid. The more you get paid, that means the bigger the check that you're going to have to write back, and the more you're going to have to babysit that money while you're waiting for this procedure to go through. Okay, so again, go to the office, get the date stamp on this form, ask them to suspend your payment so you don't continue to get paid. Then once the local office has your form, they're going to fax it over to the payment center. The payment center is not a local office. It's not a place that you can walk into, and they're spaced out all throughout the country. Off the top of my head, there's one in Birmingham, Alabama, Jamaica, New York, Wilkes-Barre, PA, just to name a few of them. Those are East Coast. I don't know where the West Coast or the Central ones are, but that just gives you an example. So this form will go to them, and then at some point in time, the payment center is going to send you a letter. It's probably going to have some information on there pertaining to whatever record you draw benefits from, and it's going to say, okay, you owe us X amount of dollars. Please remit your payment as soon as possible. If you haven't been paid at all, then it should be pretty straightforward. You'll just get the letter saying, we have processed your request to withdraw your benefits, and it's now completed. If payment has been issued, then they'll be asking for that money back. So make sure that when you cut them the check, that you put whatever claim number that those benefits were paid under. So whether it was retirement benefits under yourself, or maybe it's your deceased spouse's retirement benefits, or maybe if you applied for widow's benefits and then you changed your mind, make sure it's the Social Security claim number, right? So that it could be a different Social Security number than your own. If it were me, I would also throw in a copy of my date stamped 521 with it, because all that information is going to be on there. I'm not familiar with what exactly they mail you, but they'll be giving you an envelope to mail everything back in. If it were me, I would put my documents in whatever envelope they give you, and then I would go to like UPS or like FedEx or some reliable carrier, and throw it in another envelope with the same address with tracking information, so that you can track when your payment leaves that mail carrier and arrives at its destination, and you know for sure that they got your payment, they got your form, they have all the information they need to process your request, and there's no more delays. Then once that's done, they'll send you the letter, like I mentioned before, basically saying, your withdrawal request has been completed. Thank you so much. Please contact us again whenever you're ready to file. And then from there, that is how you would properly request a withdrawal of benefits. I hope the video was able to help you out or teach you something. I hope you learned something new. If you did, please give the video a like. It does help out the algorithm of the channel and spread this information to other people like yourself that are looking for how to do this, or they might be confused by certain language or what somebody told them. So please give it a like. If you had a question about anything I covered, please leave a comment down below, and I'll try and reply to it as soon as possible. And consider subscribing to the channel and turning on your bell notifications so that you're always notified whenever I'm posting new content. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic day.